Hello, 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 and welcome to all you PMOs, PMEs, POMOs, POMEs, and PIMQs. Welcome to the world, the podcast where we discuss all things related to the process of waking up, walking out, and moving on from life in a Christian cult. I'm Dr. Ryan Lee, a former Jehovah's Witness with a doctorate in clinical psychology, and a practicing therapist specializing in helping former cult members move through the recovery and rebuilding process. All right, everybody, how you doing? So I'm currently fresh off another cold plunge. This time it was really sunny and warm outside, and my internal temperature is perfect. I hit the sweet spot. And just to give you a little visual, I'm currently sitting in the podcast booth in nothing but my turquoise Hanes boxer briefs, which somehow seems appropriate to start a whole episode on dating. I will also let you know that today I am being joined by a new puppy in the house. She is just so fucking adorable and cute and also just a terror and just shits every. She's already shit in my podcast booth like 3 times. She seems to think this is her own personal bathroom. And if she wasn't so fucking cute, might have a problem with it. All right, so I know these intros have been running a little bit long and I'm already off to a bad start. But I'm going to aim to keep it to a tight 5.
Keep it tight, all right?
Absolutely, Method Man. Thank you for your depth of wisdom. Okay, so yeah, going to keep it tight. All right? Okay, so just a few things. So first of all, you might notice that I have changed the intro to this podcast a little bit. And here's the reason for that. I hope you won't begrudge me for it. I have been very much enjoying this podcast, and part of the enjoyment comes from I really enjoy speaking to our tiny little group of XJWs, and that feels really precious to me, and it is important to me to do my best to preserve that. I know that's part of it. I know it's part of it for me. I would guess it's part of it for you, that you feel like this is for us. This is a nice thing that's for us, and that's just this really sweet, intimate thing. And also, as I've been making these podcasts, I've been getting really excited and putting a lot of effort and a lot of work into them. And as you may or may not know, while I do primarily work with XJWs, I do work with a lot of other Christian cults. And one of the things that's really interesting that I would like to share more about is that there's kind of like 2 things operating here. You know, one, it is really important to recognize the uniqueness of our experience. And also, there's really something beautiful in understanding something that may not be obvious to someone who doesn't work with cults all day is that regardless of the flavor of this ridiculous religious beliefs, the mechanism is exactly the same. It's exactly the same across cults, and I think it's really valuable to see that, not only to honor the uniqueness of our situation, but also recognize that this is a thing. Cults are a fucking thing. They're a very predictable, almost cookie cutter pattern, and they have very predictable impacts in the way that they affect the people that are part of them. Anyways, it dawned on me, you know, as much as I love our little audience, it is kind of little. And yeah, I think it's valuable to think about maybe expanding this a little bit and maybe let some other people in. And this segues nicely into the other reason I'm doing this is because this retreat, I know you guys are tired of hearing me talk about it, but like it really is something special. And one of the things we noticed in the last retreat is we did open it up. It was mostly ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, but there were 2 people that came from other fundamentalist Christian cults. And it was really beautiful, man, like, because there was this moment at the beginning where I think both of them felt a little bit like, oh, God, I'm surrounded by Jehovah's Witnesses, and how am I going to fit in here? And almost immediately, like, that just dropped. It didn't fucking matter because there was this immediate recognition that we're all dealing with the same shit, and it really doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm just elaborating on the point. But yeah, part of the idea about opening this up in the podcast to a bigger audience is also bringing more awareness to this retreat that we're doing. And we're looking for ways to open that up to a broader group of people that have essentially the same experiences. Okay, keeping moving, keeping it tight. Aight. Yeah, this just leads me to my last point, which is I just want to ask, I could use some help, guys. If any of you guys are out there listening and have any social media skills or ideas about generating content, I mean, and here's, I don't want to go off on a tangent again, but like, I don't want to just fucking create content for the sake of churning out garbage, you know? I'm struggling with that right now, but also there's this clear desire of wanting people to be aware of the things that we're doing. So if you are one of those people that has any sort of insight or abilities or skills, please let me know. Reach out. I'd really like to work with somebody who has a grasp of what we're trying to do here. Okay, I have no idea whether I've kept a tight 5, but I suppose I will figure that out in editing. Oh, let's do that thing again where I pretend like I know what's going to happen. Oh, wow, I'm so impressed with myself with how I kept that to a tight 5 without any editing at all. Just, oh, yeah, by the way, drryanlee.com/retreat. Thank you. All right, so let's make our way into the main event for today's show. Now, just real quick, I know last week we did a whole episode on narcissism, and I'm just going to be straight with you. This just felt fucking heavy, as I mentioned, and we are going to return to that topic for sure, but I just need a break. I just need a minute to catch my breath. It's just, oh my God, it's just heavy shit. So anyways, yeah, we're going to do a topic today that's a little more fun, in quotes. And today we're going to dive into a topic that a lot of you have been asking about, and even more of you are probably quietly, awkwardly avoiding. We are going to talk about dating. Yes, that deeply human, wildly awkward, often humiliating ritual that you're supposed to figure out in your teens when you're covered in acne and hormones, but instead, you were prepping for paradise and counting field service hours. So now you're 35, spiritually excommunicated, emotionally constipated, and you're trying to navigate Tinder with all the riz of a homeschooled 14-year-old. So this episode is going to be a crash course in dating for former cult members. This one is for all of us that got robbed of that rite of passage and are just struggling to catch up. Now, there's so much to cover here, and pretty much every topic that I'm covering could probably just be its own episode. But let's think about this episode like a map through the landmines, you know? Sprinkled with things that I wish I'd known 20 years ago. And I deeply hope that something in this podcast, I feel like I'm communicating to my young 20-something-year-old self and go, listen, man, this is the shit you need to know. Stop fucking around. But even as I say that, of course, I think this is so important, regardless of what we talk about in this episode. This thing that you're going through, you know, with all the awkwardness, you can't skip the mess, okay? You know, the cringe, the butterflies, the soul-splitting disappointment, the oh my God, why did I send that text sort of moments. None of these are signs that you're doing it wrong. They're actually part of the curriculum. And you can't wisdom your way around the cringe. It's not going to stop me from trying. But yes, the mess is the muscle. All the pain and awkwardness of this experience is exactly what you need to do, because that's exactly what every teenager gets to go through. And I'm sorry, you got to do it now, but you still got to do it. Okay? Okay. Now, again, most of these bullet points could probably be their own episode, but for today, I'm still having trouble saying today. I don't know why that is. What is that? But for today, we're going to aim for something a little bit more rapid fire. Yeah, so we're going to talk about a bunch of things today. The culty baggage we're dragging into the bedroom. We're going to talk about how to tell the difference between love and infatuation and straight up trauma bonding. And then we're going to touch on a few of the ABCs of the birds and the bees. Sex. That's what we're going to talk about, sex. Oh my God, that's a lot. I don't know how you feel about these long episodes, but this one is going to be another one. So here we go. Okay, so let's just start by getting our hands dirty, taking a moment to name the diabolically deranged ideas about love, sex, and relationships that were shoved down our throats by the cults that claim to love us. So yeah, let's just talk about the dating as a concept, It was pretty much only for people who were ready for marriage, whatever that means. And there was pretty much zero possibility for you to actually get to know someone or explore your preferences or make mistakes. Dating was essentially an application process for the lifelong job of wife or husband with eternal consequences, not just till death do you part, but just like you're signing up for just eternity with this person. Seems like there should be much more of an elaborate process for vetting. But no, not only is there not any process, but like how many people you guys know got married at 18 because they just couldn't take one more night alone with their thoughts and no orgasms. There's not a whole lot to look forward to in the Christian cults. And so yeah, as soon as you're 18 and you figure out the only way to get any joy in life is to fucking get hitched, your attitude tends to be like, oh, you're a person who is also here and also part of my religion. Okay, let's do this forever into eternity. Praise Jah. Oh my God, there's just so much to talk about here. I don't even know how I'm going to get through all this, but okay, let's just leave that one alone and move on to oh my God. Your body, it's just shameful. Masturbation is just terrible. It's just an awful thing. You cannot do that thing. But if you do that thing, God is watching you really closely, like a creepy landlord with binoculars. And then, yeah, man, as a jumping off point, you're not supposed to have sex with yourself. You're definitely not supposed to have sex with anybody else. And then you're supposed to fucking get married and then figure out whether that's a good fit. No pun intended. I mean, how do you even learn that? You don't. I was going to say, how do you learn how to be good at sex? You don't, basically. That's the answer to that. Basically, the short story of that is missionary. The end. Oh my God, and then fucking rendering the marital due or maintaining peace in the marriage bed. Oh, you poor women. I'm sure nothing gets you hornier than spiritual obligation. All of these terms, these fucking quotes from the Bible, they're just cult speak for communicating basically have sex with your husband, whether you want to or not, because apparently God has some really strong feelings about your husband's blue balls. I don't know. It's so fucking awful. It just reduces sex to a duty instead of this deeply connected, consensual, beautiful act. And that's of course it's just a fucking recipe for destroying intimacy. Oh fucking God. Okay. So yeah, we're all agreed this is just fucking all just terrible and awful. I won't go on a tangent on how this stuff seems to be by design to just fucking ruin relationships and your own connection to love. Okay, I'll stop. Okay, it's awful. It's fucking terrible. We got it. Okay. So before moving on, let's just quickly recap. The idea that sex is a sin is bullshit. The idea that dating is only for marriage, that is also nonsense and a bad idea. And the concept that your desires are dangerous and scary, nope, that is also wrong. I'll just leave it there. We got more important shit to dig into. Okay, so when people leave their Christian cult and they begin to think about the idea of dating, the first obvious question is, how does one go about meeting people? And I'm not going to overcomplicate this one because it really is just basic, even if it's not sexy, which is how do you meet people? You just put yourself in places where other people are. And you just prioritize that. I know, it's radical. I know. There's really no workaround for this one. There's not like a special former cult survivor meet cute lounge or something, you know? You got to put in the work. You just got to put your body around other bodies, bookstores, volunteering, dance class, trivia nights, dating apps, your job, your friends' friends. Need I go on? I won't. You just got to put yourself around other bodies, show up, be awkward, learn from that experience, rinse and repeat. I know, not super sexy, but that's just where it's at with that one. I'm just not going to spend any more time on that one. Now, provided you do that step, you will inevitably start meeting people and have opportunities for romantic encounters. And this is where we're going to spend most of our time today. Okay, so let's just start off with one of the most common experiences I notice on my clients, and I felt this way myself, which is as you enter the dating arena, you carry this deep sense of shame about the fact that you are currently learning things that other people seem to have figured out a long, long time ago. And that's real. I mean, that is in fact the case, So let's make a little space for that. But here's one of the things I notice is that idea that we're so far behind other people is actually more problematic in itself. And here's what I mean. Like, yeah, there will inevitably be moments where you'll stumble across something and you get that look from the other person like, how do you not know this already? That'll happen, but in my experience, those moments are pretty few and far between for the most part, and small in relation to this overwhelming energy you have of like, oh my God, I'm so far behind. It's going to be so embarrassing when they see how far behind I am. The idea of how far behind you are is a little bit disproportional to the reality of the situation, with a lot of extra emphasis on how you imagine other people are going to judge you for where you're at in life. And what I would say to this is I would challenge you to ask yourself, how many times has your actual inexperience hurt a relationship in a significant way versus how many times did your insecurity about your inexperience make you act fucking weird, man? You just sort of get all up in your head about it and then just becomes a whole thing. And that's when it's weird. It is weird. Even then it's fine. But that's the weird shit. Okay, let's move on a little bit. So, rejection. Oh my God. This is something we, as former cult members, have not really been inoculated to. We've been in a setting that is pretty much, the baseline is always we accept, and we must accept everybody all of the time, and everyone feels welcome all of the time, and we can never let anybody feel rejected. And that's problematic because being able to handle rejection is a huge part of what makes you resilient in life. It is a skill you must learn. And if you haven't learned it already, well, buckle up. You're about to probably learn quite a bit of it. And I'm not going to lie, it sucks. It's not fun. It feels uncomfortable. But it's something we got to get over because here's the thing. Our fear of rejection stops us from speaking how we really feel, from going after what we want, and it keeps us small. As painful as rejection can be, it's the place where we build emotional muscle. So yeah, as much as possible as you do this, try to adopt a mindset of learning to ride that wave. Get rejected, I mean, if you really want to run with it, I would encourage you, go out and actually ask for things you want, knowing that there's a high likelihood you will get rejection just for the purpose of training yourself to get used to it and not take it so seriously, And then, yeah, every once in a while it does. It hits deep in the heart space, and so you fucking go cry in the car, eat a pastry, and then try again. If you want to be successful in anything, this is a skill you must master, learning how to handle rejection. Okay, let me talk about another one that I see very commonly in people's early dating experiences, which is the fantasy projection trap. Now, here's what that looks like. It's basically like you meet somebody, you think they're kind of cute, and then you discover that they like some obscure novel or band. And immediately your heart just goes, oh my God, they are the one that I will spend the rest of my life with. And here's the thing, maybe they are, but we do this thing when that happens where we find one area of commonality and then we build an entire story around that, which includes a lot of assumptions of if you like this, then therefore that must mean this thing about you. So yeah, taking that example of there's an obscure book maybe that they like. Now you like this book for really specific reasons, and it lights your heart up in very specific ways, and then you assume that it must light them up in the same way. And then because you make that assumption, you assume they must share the same values as you do, and they must share the same worldview as you do. And yes, sometimes that's the case. But it's also often the case that they like that particular book for completely different reasons, or that it doesn't say as much about them as you thought it might. Now, I had a newer client who went through this recently, where she had a common interest and thought this could really be something, and it turned out to be nothing. And so she did a very common thing, which is she started being suspicious of the times when her heart lit her up. Because obviously, in this particular situation, it didn't play out as she might have hoped. So again, the lesson was I can't trust my fucking treacherous heart. But to me, that's the wrong lesson to learn here. Not that you can't trust the things you're drawn to or the ways in which your heart lights up. No, that's super important to protect and listen to, when something's calling you in a certain direction. Please keep listening to that. It's so important. But to me, the lesson here is not to not trust it, but that when your heart flutters, let that be a signal of, I'd like to know more. Ask questions. Don't build a whole life on a shared playlist and mutual disdain for mayonnaise or whatever. Get to know the real person, not just the avatar that you wish they were. And if you do that, what you'll find is, there'll be plenty of times where you're like, oh my God, I love this person. They light me up so much. And then I find out this other thing and never mind. But you keep doing that. And then eventually one day you'll come across a person where you keep asking more questions. And every time they answer, you're like, oh, wow. Wow, I love this. Oh my God, I love this person. I think I love this person. Let me learn more. Let me ask another question. Oh my God, they answered perfectly. And that'll keep going. So that's the thing you're looking for. Okay, let's talk a little bit about love versus infatuation versus trauma bond. So for each of us, this is a path, another one that we need to figure out for ourselves and knowing ourselves better and knowing what sort of signals we get in our body that communicate something real versus something exciting / probably chaotic, And here's what I can say about that. What I've learned is that real love is consistent. It can be exciting, but it feels calm. You feel at home with the person. You get good sleep when you're interacting with this person. Now, infatuation, on the other hand, is super fun. Don't get me wrong; it's intoxicating. It's loud, it's fast and exciting, until it isn't. And that's okay. It's fine. And sometimes it goes that way and then it just fizzles out. And that's sometimes the way it goes. Now, trauma bond, that is a whole different can of worms, So generally when it's a trauma bond type situation, that's like the chaos that feels like chemistry. It's super, super hot sex usually. That's part of it. Like over the top, really good sex, and then followed by panic attacks. You just feel fucking wound up. And again, sometimes the wound up is exhilarating, but then the flip side is the wound up of like anxious, and I feel off base with this person. I feel off balance, and I can't stop thinking about him in a bad way. I'm obsessing in a bad way. And you tend to think it's this soulmate level intensity. You take the intensity as a sign that this must be your soulmate. But often in these situations, it's really just your attachment wounds reenacting your childhood. Now, again, this is one of those things that really deserves its own episode. But in short, yeah, as human beings, we have this tendency to recreate our situations from childhood in a manageable way or seemingly manageable way that now enables the vehicle for us to set what is not right and set it right. So like, for example, the woman who has a father who is emotionally unavailable and not really present, and all she really wants is that father's attention and love, and it created a dynamic where she had to sort of keep trying to fight for it and get that attention. Anyways, sure enough, she'll end up being drawn to men that are also emotionally unavailable and recreate that same situation. And again, the underlying feeling is like, oh, I can get it right this time. I can actually win this person over this time. And another way to think about it is it's replaying a scenario where there's some lesson your soul needs to learn. And I'm going to return to that in a second. But yeah, this is what trauma bond kind of looks like. Very exhilarating, has familiar patterns. Reminds you quite a bit of your relationship with your mother or father. And I guess this segues nicely into a phase that most of us go through when we start dating. It seems like most people go through this, which is you go through a phase where you date emotionally unavailable train wrecks. Okay, so for women, the typical thing is it's the bad boy, that you're drawn to. This phase sometimes it's multiple bad boys you go through, and they're smoldering and they're mysterious and edgy and a little dangerous, and that's very exciting. And then you usually find out in these situations that those types of people, the chaos is quite a lot, the emotional unavailability is quite a lot. And a lot of times they turn out to be downright abusive. Now, for men, the equivalent is kind of the wildly unpredictable goddess who is crazy hot and crazy wild and also crazy. just fucking crazy, just flat out crazy. Yeah, I'm going to return in a minute. I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience. But most of my life, the craziness, just like a moth to a flame. But yeah, in short, listen, you can go through that phase. It's fine. Do it. Go for it. You'll learn something. You'll survive. You'll probably do it a few times and then lose your appetite for it because it does come with a lot of hooks. Speaking of hooks, let's continue the dysfunction junction train line here. Here's another scenario that I see super commonly, and then I was on both ends myself, is being drawn to the fixer-upper type relationships. In short, the person who's deeply wounded but has zero interest in actual therapy or doing anything about it, and they kind of romanticize, their misery. Now, there's a few reasons why we might be drawn to situations like this. So first of all, one is sometimes we date broken kind of people to avoid looking at our own mess. When someone's needs feel so much more dire or important than our own needs, it's easy for us to just get preoccupied with supporting them and this idea that we're supporting them. And yeah, generally speaking, when you peel back the layers, what's really happening there is it's a very convenient excuse to focus on other people's shit instead of just dealing with your own shit, man. Now, as an extension of that, sometimes being in these kind of relationships, we can feel like a feeling of superiority or just simply, it just makes us feel good that we're more sane by comparison to the other person. And then one more scenario, which actually I think is probably the most common, which is We get caught in this thing where, we don't even realize we're doing it, but we have like a savior complex, and what's really operating under the surface is this idea that we think that if we save them, then they will need us and therefore they will never leave us. It feels good to feel like we have a purpose, to feel like we're needed. And that makes us feel a little bit more secure that by maintaining this dynamic, we ensure that they won't leave us. And that's not love. Sometimes we mask it, he's suffering so much and I just need to be there for him and he doesn't understand and all his childhood trauma and he's really doing the best he can. I mean, he's not actually doing anything really differently, behaving differently, but he's talking quite a bit about how much he wants to change and I'm just here to support him and yeah, that's codependency. Okay? You're not a rehab center. I mean, unless you really want to be, I guess. If that's really what your soul wants, well, don't let me get in your way. But yeah, it doesn't usually end well, relationships that are built on those dynamics. And that segues nicely into another thing that does not build a good foundation for a relationship, which is trauma bonding. This is also a very common pattern I see in people who are fresh out of the cult, which is they're suffering so much and they're hurting so much and they're feeling so fucking lost. And so they tend to gravitate towards people who mirror that sort of state. So you meet somebody, you think they're kind of cute, and then you just dump it all out. You just lay out all, not just the Jehovah's Witness stuff, but all the childhood abuse and all the narcissism, and you just throw it all out there, kind of with this mindset where like I might as well just tell them, and if they're gonna leave now, might as well get it over with. And then you'll meet somebody, and not only are they not scared away, but they somehow weirdly love it. They're like, oh my God, me too. Let me tell you about my horrible childhood and let me tell you about this. And, and I want to be really careful here because there's elements of this that are beautiful, sharing those moments of pain and really feeling understood. And it feels really safe. It's nice. It's nice to talk to somebody who feels kind of as fucked up as you are. And you don't have to have any pretenses, But in the more extreme situations, where this is what it's built on, you end up building a relationship based on shared pain instead of shared values. It feels really intimate and it's nice, but it tends to be just mutually coping. So relationships that are built on this foundation tend to have this echo chamber amplification reinforcing effect. You're sad and I'm sad, so let's be sad together. How romantic. Let's just fucking relish in our sadness. And yeah, again, it's nice at first, but it tends to just devolve and turn into something where it's like, oh, this is how we operate now. This is the reality that we're building with each other, one on shared misery, It tends to not work out so well. And also just let me continue peppering in. Go ahead, fuck around, find out. Really, really, fuck around. Find out firsthand. Find out that fire is hot. Find out that eternal misery is not all it's cracked up to be. Yeah, okay. So yeah, let me move on to wrap up this section on the dysfunctional patterns we're talking about. If you can recognize these patterns, and you see that they're not good for you, and you have the capacity to walk away and choose healthier relationships, then absolutely, please fucking do that. Please save yourself a lot of time. If that is an option and that's on the table, that's option number one. But here's the thing. For most of us, we're drawn to these situations for a reason. And in short, that there's something we need to learn from these situations that we haven't quite learned yet. Again, so for example, sometimes we need to learn firsthand that no matter how much you love a person, you cannot save them. You cannot fix them. Or maybe the lesson you need to learn is that no matter how hard you try or how many hoops you jump through, you cannot make a person love you. Whatever the reason we're drawn to these situations, there's a reason. And while I would wish for you to not have to go down those paths, I actually think it's really important for you to follow the thing you're desired to and see it through to its inevitable conclusion. And let me share a little bit about my own experience to illustrate. So I figured out in my late 20s that I was drawn to a certain kind of crazy. Let's just wrap it up with a little bit of, narcissistic-y, kind of borderline-y. That just fucking lit me up like moth to flame. Yeah, and it got to the point where I'd be doing these like online dating things, and I don't know what it was. There would be a certain profile, and I'd start reading about this person, and immediately I'd just be like, oh my God, this person! I need to know who this person is, you know? And then I had like multiple encounters that every time I had that feeling, that sure enough, I would meet the person and very quickly learn that they are very much on the borderline and or narcissistic spectrum. And it got so predictable that I'm like, okay, that is a thing. I don't want to do that. I don't know why I'm attracted. Well, I did know why. I knew why I was attracted. I had enough understanding of psychology at that point to realize that I was replicating childhood experiences and dynamics. But anyways, I was just like, oh, well, I'm attracted to that. I'm not doing that. And I'm not going to be with anybody until I find somebody that I'm attracted to for healthy reasons. And I'm not going to be with anybody until I find myself attracted to somebody who is healthy and actually good for me. And in the short story there is, oh God, I don't want to say how many years. It feels embarrassing. But it was many, many, many years while I was waiting to magically be attracted to somebody who was more healthy for me. So anyways, after a long number of years and then eventually just feeling really lonely, I was like, all right, fuck it. let's just go with the attraction and regardless of, I know I'm walking into crazy, and let's just go with it. And I'll just jump to the point. That was 4 years. I found a person. It was 4 years of not good. But here's the thing. I can be so honest and say I am so grateful for that relationship. And in both ways, like there were beautiful things that happened that I'm deeply grateful for. And yeah, there was a lot of fucked up shit that I needed to experience. That's the bottom line. I really needed to kind of go headlong into the thing that I was being attracted to in order to really feel and learn in my bones that I don't want that. Now, again, intellectually, I already knew I did not want that, but I needed to experience it. I needed to learn that fire is hot in order to move forward. I don't have regrets because life just goes the way it needs to go. But yeah, in retrospect, if I had just allowed myself to follow the things that I was attracted to, even if I knew that they weren't the things that were good for me, I probably could have figured this out like 10, 15 years ago, had this experience and really, really understood what was bad for me to the point where I authentically didn't want it anymore. And then, yeah, once you have that experience, it just clears the way. And that's when you start authentically attracting the real right types of healthy relationships. Not because you know that you should or that's what you want. You can't talk your heart into wanting something different. It needs to have the experience of following what it wants to follow to its inevitable conclusion. Seriously, if this is what you're drawn to, fuck around and find out. Really, go for it. Throw yourself into it. Throw yourself up against that wall until you have lost the appetite to continue doing that. All right, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm just looking at the time on this. Oh my God, we've already spent so much time. This is already a long episode. I've been putting out a lot of long episodes. And again, per Dakota's advice, I've been trying to avoid doing multiple part episodes. But I'm sorry, there's just too much to cover here. There's just too much. Even as it is, I just feel like I've just crammed a whole bunch and kind of skimmed the surface on all of this stuff. And I still haven't gotten to talk about sex. I haven't talked about the importance of boundaries and the ways in which we learn how to be more authentic in these relationships. I mean, there's just so much here. So forgive me. I'm going to call this one short and leave you with yet another Empire Strikes Back to be continued. There's just too much good stuff here. But just to put a button on this episode, let me just say that no matter how challenging it may feel navigating this new world of dating with all the ups and downs and awkwardness, keep in mind, you're not failing. I promise you, you're learning. You know, these relationships and all these experiences, they help you in the process of learning about yourself, what you like and what you don't like. So we got more to come. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about what I've observed in relationships that actually work, like really good, healthy relationships, and like a whole bunch of other stuff. So in the meantime, just keep following what feels right and start practicing letting go of what does not feel right. Okay, good enough for today.
When will I learn to love? When will I learn to love again? When will I learn to love? When will I learn to love again?
All right, thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you guys found this helpful. I would love to hear if you guys had any points in this episode of things that you'd actually like to hear a lot more about. Let me know. Happy to make more of an episode, make more of a meal out of some of these juicy topics. But yeah, if you guys did find it helpful, by all means, please help us out. Please like, subscribe, do that stuff, reviews, sharing, and I love all that. Thank you very much. It helps quite a bit. Let other people know about this retreat we're doing, drryanlee.com/retreat. And yeah, for any of you guys listening, if you want to participate or help us create this cool thing, please reach out. Let me know. Let me know what kind of skills you have. We would love to explore the possibility of you joining our team. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. When I started doing this a year ago, I started using this language of we, just because it sounds better. Instead of just Dr. Ryan Lee, it sounds better. That there's an organization of people creating this podcast when for many months it was just me. But I am very pleased to share that actually it is a we now. We do have a team. We have a fucking amazing team. We've got Abby, we've got Jono, we've got Lynn, we've got EJ, we've got Sean. We've got so many people that are part of this, and if I had more time, I would love to tell you more about all of them. But yes, we do have a team growing. This is a thing. It's very fucking cool. And yeah, we would be very interested if you have skills that you'd like to offer the team. Let's talk. Until next time, remember, you are brave. You gotta be brave to do some of this shit with dating. You are strong, even if you don't always feel like it. You can totally do this, I promise you. And you, my friend, are not alone. And then what the fuck are we talking about? What are we doing? What are we, guys? All right, cool.